This is Jets FM on the OFN. After taking the week off last week, and after what happened in Seattle, you can forgive us for that. But it's been actually a very busy couple of weeks. As you can see, we have a brand new template for the show. And actually, we have brand new templates for all of our shows, not only on the Ourlads Football Network, but also Prime Sports Network. But Ourlads Football Network, that's what's taking over. Of course, it's football season. And as you can see from the new logo we have there, Jets FM, and on the bottom, the most important slogan that I think is real important: green skies ahead, and that's what I believe in. And I think that at this point in time, I think it's important. And what I'm going to do is look at this as this is the beginning. These are the beginning steps of, especially if Adam Gase does get fired. Then in a few weeks, they really will be beginning steps with a new coach and the draft capital. And I do think there are green skies ahead, no matter whether Trevor Lawrence becomes a Jet or not. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Jan, that I had kind of put myself in a position of, I guess you could say, faith in Joe Douglas, that no matter what, it's out of our control. Whatever happens is going to happen, and that's unfortunately where we do stand now on the bad side, at least for this week, with the Jets now no longer occupying the number one spot.
I guess that's the optimistic view. I understand to a certain extent that it's hard to be optimistic. You know, if the season ends up at 1-15 and they miss out on getting the number one pick and a potential generational talent, and I use the term potential because clearly none of us know what's going to pan out, but he sure looks like one after torching my Notre Dame team last week, especially. But the team has played hard. We've said this beforehand. The one thing you can say, as much as we may not like Adam Gase as a coach, or some of us don't like Adam Gase as a coach, is that the team in itself has not quit on him. We saw that last year after the horrific start. We've seen that this year, that the team really hasn't laid down and died. They were poor against Seattle, but Seattle had a very good game, which kind of flipped the switch for them because they were pretty lousy, in my opinion, against Washington this week. But they beat the crap out of the Jets, and part of that may have been Jamal Adams looking to wreak a little revenge on the team. But what we can say and have said is that they play hard every single game, and that was evident this week. And in my opinion, the big difference this week is I think Sean McVay outsmarted himself in terms of the way the game plan went, and the Rams, to a certain extent, overlooked the Jets. The record might have contributed to it, the viewpoint and what they are as a team, but the Rams didn't show up until really the second half. And then you look at some of the play calling, especially down the stretch when they made it a game and they blew an opportunity to tie the game, not going for the 52-yard field goal after Gay hit a 46-yarder, which made no sense, the third and fourth down calls, and then leaving, Frank Gore wide open on a leak out route in the middle of the field to get the first down. Whether or not Sam Darnold is the quarterback for the future, granted, time will tell. He played a good game. I guess the thing that I've read a lot, and maybe the truth, and we have to decide this, is you may be able to win with Sam Darnold. The question is can you win because of Sam Darnold? And what you need as a quarterback, and if you're going to have an elite quarterback, you need a quarterback who can uplift the rest of his teammates and carry a not as good team to the next level. And the jury is still very far out as to whether or not Darnold is going to be able to be that kind of quarterback or not. What we've seen so far, that's likely not the case. The door hasn't fully closed, but after 3 years, you'd like to have a better sense in terms of what your quarterback is for now and for the future.
Well, I'm posting a quote from, I think this was forget which article it was. It was definitely from the New York Post. And basically it talked about, because once you mentioned how the Jets still play hard for Gase, there was back and forth with the media where Gase talked about his phone call with Sean McVay and about how McVay and Adam, they talked real early in the morning, and McVay, these guys are close friends. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if Gase gets fired if that's where he goes. But this is basically the quote was from McVay that he was really impressed with how hard the players play for him. and especially impressed with the fact that they play hard for him at this point in the season, a winless team, and how important that is. And this is why, and these are the part of the reasons why I felt that Adam Gase was somebody that was interesting to me, that I wanted to give him a chance with the team. And I was never a Gase guy until I just started to realize, hey, that Dolphin team, they're not very good. They don't have a lot of talent. I mean, they're bereft of talent. But for some reason, every time I look at a Dolphin game, they're winning games they shouldn't win. They're battling hard, and so I actually went from being sort of like the way Jet fans were with Gase, and still are, to all of a sudden I was starting to say, well, maybe there's something to this guy. Then all of a sudden the opportunity came for him to hire Gase, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm intrigued. I'd rather have him than McCarthy. Let's go for it. The fans were never on board. First chance they got an opportunity to slam him, they did, especially this year without winning. But again, I think what's important, remember, everybody was talking about early in the season, there was, he doesn't get along with this guy, he doesn't get along with that guy. Where are those cries anymore? Because you don't hear them, because they're not. You're going to always have issues with a player or two, but those quotes are gone, or those rants are gone from the general public, because there's just not. It's not the case. I mean, the players play hard for this coach, and they're not a very good team. They're a young team. They're in a rebuilding stage, and this is the type of coach you kind of want at this rebuilding stage, unless you find someone that much more proven, that much more, got to get after Bill Cowher. I mean, we definitely have to take Campbell from Iowa State, and I'm all on board with taking guys like that. But as I said before, and now that they have a win under their belts, I actually think, and I know I'm against public opinion, and maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I still think now the odds of Gase staying have doubled. So they got from 10% maybe to 20%, maybe 25% after the win. There's still a couple of games left. And I just think it's important to keep in mind what's out there. And I don't want to see the Jets fire Adam Gase and then be in a situation where they have no idea where they're going to go. They don't have Trevor Lawrence now, let's just say. And that becomes a big obstacle for getting a really big-time head coach. And all of a sudden, you're in that next tier of coaches, the Greg Romans, the Wink Martindales, guys like that have never proven anything. I don't want to go down that road. And I think it would be worse for the franchise to fire Gase just to fire him, to bring in a guy that is not a commodity, a known commodity that you can really be pretty sure he's going to be the guy. I'd rather just say, you know what, if you're not sure that you got the right guy, then go back with Darnold one more year, go back with Gase one more year. You have much more talent this time around. Hopefully you get the offseason to gel with these guys and see what happens, instead of just firing Gase and bringing in another guy that could just be, another bad head coach. I just don't want to do that. And I think that the fact that the players play hard for Gase is very important. Again, when you're trying to build something with a lot of young, talented, and hopefully even more young, talented players that are going to be on board here soon.
So there's a couple things with that. So first, we talked a couple times. I mean, if there was ever a year the Jets were going to be horrific, right? This is probably the best year, because if their fans were allowed in the building, and then the fans started staying away in droves, that would send an even clearer message, and that would force the hand of management, which I still think it's going to be force B.
I agree.
The other factor that needs to be considered is, what is the perception of Gase within the industry and within the league? Mainly because as you approach free agency, if there are players, and look, granted, he didn't want Le'Veon Bell here. Bell is gone. Leonard Williams is gone. There's been a lot of moves that have been made. Part of Jamal Adams, right? So Adams was mad at management, but you don't know whether or not that filtered down to his perception of the coaching staff. And players in the league, in every league, will talk. And the perception is that Gase is not a coach you want to play for, or the Jets are not a destination or place where you want to go, regardless of what we think Douglas is looking to put together. You're going to have that issue to have to surmount, which may force you to make a change for managerial sake as well.
You just said, because, all right, I just said that all the players play hard for him. You just said, well, word's going to get around. All right. Well, if word's going to get around and all the players play hard for him, then that's a good thing. Second, I think it was important and it was good. It was great, actually, to hear Bill Cowher come out a couple of weeks ago, whether he takes the job or not. He probably won't. And said that he thinks this is the best job out there. Yes, Trevor Lawrence, but he also talked about Joe Douglas. So again, now you're getting a guy that's respected like Bill Cowher saying, I think that's a great job, and using Joe Douglas's name in there, not just Trevor Lawrence. So I think everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, but there are some positives to that as well. So I'm not worried about that. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
I hope not. I mean, like I said, the hope is that the perception is positive enough where there can be a destination, and money is not the end all and be all, because we know the Jets entered the offseason with a ton of cap space.
Yeah,
and
they're not spending money like McCagney did.
But with a ton of needs, right? And that's kind of, they need to fill a lot of those holes. The viewpoint we had was originally when they were going to get at the number one pick is that they were going to get their franchise quarterback on an entry level deal. And granted, if they do keep Darnold, or if they go for Justin Fields, if they go for Zach Wilson,
well, what do you think they should bowl do? Game yesterday.
Right, it's a great question. I'm honestly betwixt and between. Like I said, I think right now the perception and what we've seen of Darnold is you can win with Darnold to an extent, but you won't win because of him. Now the question also becomes is what is your time frame for getting to that next level? Because if you do improve your team, irrespective of who's the quarterback, you hope that your record will improve somewhat. If your record improves to a certain extent, then you're definitely not getting a chance, most likely, at that generational quarterback, unless, for example, like what happened with Patrick Mahomes, he slides and you get him at the pick where you've gotten him, right? If Zach Wilson is no guarantee he's coming out, but what we saw out of Wilson yesterday was rather impressive, especially his ability to use his legs, which is something that Darnold has done a little bit, but not enough of. The other problem that we've seen with Darnold is, and you've talked about it with a lot of other players, is the injury factor. He can't stay on the field, regardless of why he can't stay on the field. I don't care how good you are. If you can't find a way to play every down or be in 80 to 90% of the games, then honestly, you're not as much value as you want to be. I mean, all the Giant fans make fun of Eli Manning, right? And Manning, granted, had a couple of great runs and honestly a couple of pretty shitty seasons, but he didn't have a lot of talent around him all the time, though he did have guys offensively that were good. He stayed healthy.
Yeah.
He was on the field all the time. They talk Daniel Jones, there's big hope for him, and we've seen positive signs. But if he can't stay on the field all the time, then there's no benefit, right?
So what would you do? You got two choices. Do you keep Darnold? Let's just say both choices involve keeping Darnold. Do you keep Darnold and use that second pick anyway on a quarterback? And then, of course, you can entertain offers after you make the pick, and you've got your guy for sure. And if you want to trade Darnold after you use that, because if you use the second pick on a quarterback, all right, chances are you're going to wind up then trading Darnold. Or do you trade down and take a quarterback? Or do you still decide, look, I don't trade down. I take, a really good prospect at 2, and I use one of my late first or early, because they have the capital to move up if they need to. There will be a couple of quarterbacks available late in the first round, early second. So which do you prefer to do? Hold on to Darnold, bringing in a mid-first to early second guy, which doesn't guarantee that guy is going to be the starter week 1. That means Darnold's your starter week 1. That guy's your insurance, and you give Darnold one more year. And now you've got your insurance, and maybe you even trade Darnold during the season if you've already had enough of him after 4 or 5 games, and now you bring the rookie in, and there you go. Or are you not even going to give Darnold pretty much any chance, and it's all about, I'm going to use that second pick no matter who it is?
It's a good question. So let's take out a couple of ways. So if you take a look at Philly, right? Philly thought they had their team to contend with Carson Wentz. They gave Wentz a huge extension. They drafted Jalen Hurts late, which was questionable at the time, viewing him as a change-up type quarterback. Now you're 13 games into the season. You've now starting Hurts, and you need to figure out a way Wentz, who you're paying an enormous amount of money. So point 1 is you can't give Darnold any kind of extension unless you view him honestly as being a guy in the future, right?
No way.
That's point 1. Point 2, my viewpoint, if you're going to bring in a quarterback, you've pretty much sealed early, especially an early quarterback, you've definitely sealed the deal that Darnold's not going to be the guy, right? So if you're doing that, then you need to
Not
make sure you're drafting.
necessarily.
You're not going to draft a quarterback early on if you don't think he's your quarterback of the future, because then you've wasted a high draft pick
Yeah, but
on capital that you need
if
to improve the
what if
rest of
that
your team.
guy isn't everything you hoped he would be? Or what if
Well,
Sam
I mean,
Darnold all of a sudden
what,
blossoms into the quarterback you wanted him to be?
well, if you're taking him then you're viewing him as being your quarterback of the future. If you're going to take him that early, that's my point,
No,
right?
I know.
My
I'm
viewpoint is
just
if you
saying
don't think
you can't think like that.
if,
Oh, right, I made that
right,
pick. Now I'm stuck with that pick, and even though I'm not sure he's the guy now, I'm stuck with him. That's not how they're going to think. Just look
but
at
it's a
Josh
wasted
Rosen.
pick in my opinion to an extent. So my view on this is honestly is if there's any way, shape, or form you think Darnold could
No. What do
potentially be the
you
guy.
think?
My
What
view
would
is
you
I
do?
would either take the best defensive or other player on the board at number
Okay, so
two.
you're
If
not
there's
going
nobody,
to use that second pick
if
on a quarterback. Okay.
but if there's nobody that really stands out to you tremendously that you think you have to make that pick on, I trade down, get additional picks, and then if a quarterback is the best player out there and this guy you think you can build your franchise around, I take the quarterback with that pick because I've accumulated other capital to be able to use in the draft.
Okay, so what you're saying is then the only way you're going to draft another quarterback is if you trade down and add more capital.
Unless I view the guy at number two as being a guy who I think is definitively my quarterback of the future.
Okay.
In other words, if I think Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is the guy who I think can lead my team to the next
throw this
level.
at you then. You have and Douglas and all these guys. Look, Lawrence is the only guy. All these other guys, you're gonna feel, hey, you know what? I think this guy has the ability to be my franchise quarterback. But even those guys know that they're not Trevor Lawrence. So I don't really know. You know, I'm taking a gamble here now. As much as I like the guy at number two, Fields or Wilson, I know that it's crapshoot. So in that case, knowing even the GM's going to know that it's a crapshoot if he uses that pick at number two on a quarterback, as opposed to waiting a little bit later, mid first, and early second to draft a quarterback, what would you do?
I would trade down. I'm saying.
Okay. And you would give Sam Darnold one more year or not?
Yes.
Okay. I am completely with you. That's what I would do.
Now, again, you know as well as I do, as a Jet fan, you know what our worst case scenario is, right?
What, you trade
our worst
Darnold
case
and becomes
scenario
a
right now?
superstar?
No, our worst case scenario before the end of the season is
before the end of the season.
Jacksonville finds a way to beat Indianapolis in the last game of the season, because I think they play Indy, and Belichick lays down because New England has nothing to play for, and the Jets find a way to beat New England in the last game of the season.
Well, but at least right now the Jets don't have the pick anyway. So
I know that, but
I'm not
just
looking at
as
that.
a Jet fan.
Yeah, I know. Let them worry about that. So, and we can talk more about that next week.
I think Cincy winning kind of pretty much locked the Jets
first
into
or
one of the
second
top
now.
two.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you. And by the way, this is another reason why I think people again need to understand that if management feels that Darnold is going to get another shot, if they're not going to use that pick, that number two pick, let's just say Joe Douglas is not completely enamored with whoever that is. All right, I'd rather pick one of those guys 15 or later. And he's going to give Darnold another shot. He's hoping Darnold can be that guy. I'm telling you right now, the chances are even greater that Gase comes back.
Not disagreeing with you on that.
So that's the thing I think that the fans need to understand. But again, that doesn't mean that that's what Joe Douglas is thinking about Darnold. He might have already made his mind up on Darnold, but just keep that in mind. If management wants to give Sam Darnold one more year and they're going to start him next year, and they'll draft insurance just in case, but they're going to give Darnold a shot, I highly doubt and again, this is only if they can't get a high guy, a Cow or a Campbell. That's different. But I think that if they can't get the high impact coach and they decide on a second tier or Gase and they're going to give Darnold one more year, I find it very unusual that they would bring in a new middle tier coach, change the system on Darnold again. It ain't going to work. So I think he'd have to be in that system for a third straight year to give him an opportunity as best as possible. So I think we're on the same page with that. All right. Quickly, I just want to go over as we don't have really much time left. So I'll go over some of this stuff because I know you got to run. But before we get into anything else, talk a little bit about, I guess, the other situation with the team right now, and that is how they're playing. Any particular player. Quinnen Williams is obviously a stud. We know that. He has to stay healthy. Becton, we know he's a stud. He has to stay healthy. I think it's great to have building blocks like that on opposite sides of the team, offense and defense. And I don't know what to make up of this Ram game. Like you were saying before, I'm sure the Rams didn't take this game seriously. That's definitely why the Jets got off to a pretty good start early on. But at least it was nice to see Shepard look really good. It was like, I've got a chance here with Fudakasi out to make an impact, and he did, and he had done nothing all year, so that's huge. And Fudakasi comes back this week, so once again, there were some positives, but the negative is that Sam Darnold was just unable to, and it's a matchup problem with the Rams, but he was unable to once again really get the ball to his receivers. Which against the Browns, I want to see that happen. He should be able. There should be no excuse for him not to be able to show us that he can get the ball to his top three receivers this week.
So a couple of things. So first of all, Williams and/or Becton not making the Pro Bowl is kind of a joke. Yeah. Now Becton was rated the 25th best tackle, I think, which was in line with the guys who made it. But you see how dominant he's been when he's been on the field, and probably part of his rating is because some of the games that he missed. Williams most certainly should have made it based upon his play. In terms of offense, I mean, look, Gore just keeps rolling. I mean, look, he's the standard bearer for what players should strive for in terms of what his career has been like. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame when he's done. He's a veteran leader in the room. Offensively, I mean, we hope Darnold can throw the ball to against the Browns, but look, you assume he's better than Colt McCoy, but the Browns did a pretty good job of shutting down the Giants' weapons. Slayton didn't do much in that game. Neither did Shepard. Engram was halfway decent.
Well, that's Colt McCoy. That's what I want.
Right.
That's the proof right there. We can't have Colt McCoy.
I give the Browns defense a little bit of credit because I thought the Browns defense
but the Browns defense got torched the last 2 weeks.
I'm not arguing with you. So we'll see what happens. They should be able to move the ball defensively. I thought Basham had a pretty good game. I thought May had a very good game, especially on the blast, break up to the tight end.
He's priority number one, isn't he, as far as free agents coming back?
Well, we said that last year. You should sign him in advance, right?
Yeah, we did.
We said you're going to cost you more money.
If they would have listened to us, then they would have got a better deal.
I thought that you see signs that Hall's starting to put it together. Granted, still a lot of growing pains and still a lot of room for growth, but you see signs that he started kind of to put it together a little bit. As you mentioned, look, I mean, Shepard finally had a good game and he needed it.
He's got to do more of that. Yeah,
we'll kind of see what the rotations are going to be, but there's snippets. Offensively, I don't think the offensive line was good, although Donald was basically having his way at times and was basically in Darnold's back pocket.
Yeah, Andrews is not a starter. Yeah.
So there's clearly remediation need on that offensive line, but we kind of knew that in advance. You have your building block. Hopefully you have one or two other pieces you're going to you need to kind of build. There's some decent signs in that game. Herndon did great.
Yeah, but Herndon made another
Johnson
nice catch.
Had a touchdown on the
He hasn't dropped
play.
Anything.
Yep.
And he hasn't made any bad plays since that Charger game.
That's a positive.
Yeah.
And Johnson also had a nice play as well for the touchdown. So
Johnson's definitely a part of this team next year.
I believe so. Yeah. I don't think there should be any question about that.
All right. So next week we'll get an opportunity to talk more about. Well, look, Jacksonville takes on the Bears. Unfortunately, the Bears are playing their best football of the year now. They're playing better now than when they were undefeated.
And they're looking for a playoff berth, right?
Yes.
So they have everything to play for right now.
Yeah. So the chances are it's pretty much over. That's why I think fans. I think they've already they know that the chances are pretty slim. But look, hey, the Jets did beat the Rams and the Bengals did beat the Steelers. So anything is possible. So we'll see. We'll talk next week.
And the Steelers are in a whole heap of trouble these days.
Yep. So we'll talk next week.
That team does not look good at all.
No. And that's a team that even if Ben Roethlisberger says, I'm coming back, they got to get themselves a quarterback. So that's a team that I think should trade for Haskins. You know, they need another quarterback to groom for when the time comes and Ben Roethlisberger is gone, because he just doesn't look the whole team. And again, remember we talked about this. I don't want, and I think you agree with me, nothing to do with Juju Smith. Nothing. Because he's going to want a lot of money as a number one, and he's not a number one. And I don't think Joe Douglas is going to be stupid enough to give him number one money.
If I'm going for somebody, I'm probably going for Godwin.
Yeah, that's a good one. I agree with you on that. And then, you know what? Maybe even add another tight end. It's a good tight end class. Maybe you can, if you stockpile your picks, you might be, because you definitely have to get another young guy to just in case Herndon doesn't turn the corner next year.
Agreed.
All right, so we'll talk more. We got a long way to go to talk about the team as far as the building blocks. Again, green skies ahead. So, Jan, appreciate it. I'll let you go, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good.
All right, that is Jan Levine, rotowire.com. And there was another thing I forgot to ask Jan or talk to Jan about, but I'll bring this up anyway, and that was the weird time. Are you still there, Jan?
I'm here.
All right. The timeout, the second timeout, Sam Darnold. Did you remember that one when he goes to the line of scrimmage? There's like 10 seconds on the clock against the Rams, and he's just standing there, and then he just calls timeout. I was like going, what is he doing? It's like he comes out of the huddle with 15 seconds left. He just walks up, stands there, looks up, calls timeout. And it's like, why did you just waste a timeout? It's like it didn't look like he was panicked. It didn't look like he looked at somebody that was in, one of his players was making the wrong adjustment. It was just, I don't know. I guess you don't remember it, but it just stood out to me.
I mean, it
didn't make any sense.
Maybe he was expecting a certain look and he came to the line and that different look, or maybe,
but he had enough time to change it.
Or maybe they were in his ear before he broke the huddle just to call a timeout.
Maybe, I don't know. That was weird. Because remember, he used up that other timeout against Seattle the week before the half. He calls another stupid timeout, and then they couldn't run a really good play. They had to run a stupid play out of bounds, and Castillo misses the field goal. And by the way, we didn't talk about that. Castillo missed enough field goals.
Nice having a guy back who hits field goals.
Yes, Ficken made but no question the Jets need to. That's one part of the next year. They got to add another kicker.
May have done enough that he goes into camp as the definitely the incumbent with a shot to keep the job, though.
With adding a young, not a draft pick, but somebody that is a top kicker prospect that could give him a run for his money.
Oh, and by the way, thank God Bradley Mann can tackle on the punt return team.
Yes, he's not having the rookie year
he saved the game.
He did save the game. Yes,
and actually I think he's actually had a pretty good year. I mean, there's definitely some growing pains, but I think he's actually overall had a pretty solid year as a rookie kicker.
As a rookie, yeah. But next year's the year he needs to take that jump.
Agreed.
And be a really good one. All right, Jan. Thank you.